وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
And good morning, everybody. This is Ray Hanania here, sitting in for Layla Al-Husseini again on Friday. I do that every Friday, second Friday of every month, and special Fridays to host Radio Baladi here at WNZK AM 690 Radio in Detroit. It's Friday, August 9th, 2019, and we're going to have a nice conversation with a great guest. The Arab Street Radio and Radio Baladi are part of the U.S. Arab Radio Network, hosted by Layla Husseini in an effort to energize and empower Arab Americans to stand up for their rights. For more information, go to my website at hanania.com, and afterwards we'll have the radio program podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or by visiting my podcast website at thearabstreet.org. The topics this morning, I'm really honored to have on the line another great columnist. I love to talk to journalists, because especially good journalists, and Gideon Levy, who is with Haaretz newspaper, is probably one of the great writers, many good ones, but he's right up there with them. Gideon is a columnist with Haaretz, and he's a member of the newspaper's editorial board. He's been with Haaretz since 1982. He's the recipient of many awards, including the EMAD Journalism Prize for 2008. These are pretty good. The Leipzig Freedom Prize in 2001. And the Israeli Journalists Union Prize in 1997. He also has a book, The Punishment of Gaza, that was just published by Verso Publishing House in London and New York. Welcome to the show, Gideon, and thank you for taking the time this afternoon in Israel. It's morning, 8 a.m. in Detroit, 7 a.m. in Chicago, 3 p.m. in Israel. It tells you the good side of technology can bring so many good people together. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Ray. Thank you.
You wrote a column this week, and, maybe before we start about the Isawiya column and what's happening in Israel, tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you a little bio, but what motivates you to write? Because you're not just a columnist, to promote a particular view. You kind of look for the difficult topics sometimes in a very difficult region.
Yeah, like 32 years ago, I came to the conclusion that I'm going to dedicate my professional life to cover the Israeli occupation, to tell the Israelis the crimes that are being done on their behalf, on their name. Before this, I was quite a good boy in Israel, a typical product of the Israeli education system, the Zionist the Zionist brainwash system. But when I started to travel to the occupied territories, I realized that the big drama is there, and there is hardly anyone to tell it to the Israelis. So here I am. It's a very ungrateful job, because the Israelis don't want to know and know very little about the occupation. I'm doing my best.
I remember when I've been to Israel several times, and I have relatives in Israel and in the Palestinian territories. And I remember that it just seemed like there were two worlds. There were one group of Israelis who were very concerned about what was happening, kind of a small group. One group that knew what was happening but didn't want to talk about it, and one group of Israelis that knew about it but really didn't care and were offended that people would talk about it. How do you explain those three different groups? How do you live in Israel and not, and turn your eyes away from, what's happening between both sides?
I think Israel is a society in denial, maybe like no other society on earth.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because this enables to live in peace with all the crimes of the occupation, to feel so good about ourselves, to feel that, for example, the IDF is the most moral army in the world, that Israel is the most moral state in the world, and everyone is happy about it. The media, the government, and the consumers, the readers and the viewers, they all don't want to know, even though what we are talking about is not in a colony overseas. The occupation is half an hour from Tel Aviv. But we don't want to know anything about it, because then there might be some doubts. And we don't like to have any doubts about the occupation.
Is it a fear, do you think, that many Israelis who, not every Israeli, but I know many, bury their sands, they pretend, there's not this terrible situation going on. Do you think that comes from the fear, maybe, that, like this week there was an Israeli soldier killed, or, in other words, do they hide behind the violence against Israel? There is violence in Israel, and there is violence against Palestinians. It seems they only want to talk about the violence against Israel. But is that fear of that violence against Israel the reason why they close their eyes to what's happening in the West Bank?
No. The fear is the excuse. It's not the reason. The reason is that it might really put some cracks in the most basic questions of what are we doing here? What are our rights here? Are we really a chosen people who any other people must be under our control or under our occupation? Do we have special rights which the Palestinians don't deserve? All those questions might lead really to quite bad consequences, and it's much better to close your eyes and to believe that if you don't talk about the elephant is not present in the room.
And years ago it used to be hard to do that, but it seems like it's more easier and easier now to close your eyes. Well, what's changed over the years? Are Israelis afraid that they lose their Jewishness? Maybe it won't be a Jewish state if they recognize Palestinian rights. I mean, what killed the two-state solution, and why is it more easier to close your eyes than to deal with the issues? Because 20 years ago, I think, is dealt with, the issue of rights and peace and two-state. Today, it seems like they just want to close the door, put it in a closet. They just wish it would go away, and if it won't go away, they'll just not see it.
Many things changed, and I think you are touching a very important. First of all, the Israeli peace camp totally crashed, mainly because of the lie that was spread after the Camp David conference, in which Ehud Barak, then Prime Minister, claimed that there is no Palestinian partner. So if there is no Palestinian partner, why should we bother? And then came the second Intifada, which was very bloody and very violent. And unfortunately, the Israeli peace camp, most of it, was totally crashed. They stopped believing in peace. They stopped believing in any kind of settlement with the Palestinians. And then came some other things, the world lost interest. Islamophobia became stronger in the world. The world is now much more preoccupied with questions like immigrations and other questions. And the Palestinians by themselves are divided like never before, lacking leadership, all played into the hands of the supporters of the Israeli occupation. And today we are in an entire different situation than 20 years ago. The occupation is much farther from reaching its end, and the solution is much farther than ever.
Yeah, it seems more difficult today, and you're right. I think you really kind of described the situation. It seems like peace, and we talk about peace, but let's set the word peace aside and talk about the occupation. You can't get to peace until we have both sides willing to respect each other. Do you think, let's talk about the Palestinians from the Israeli side. They are divided. They seem, but they've always been divided. There's always been a extreme element that wanted to use violence to block the peace process. Did that push us this way? Or was it a combination maybe of the Palestinians, the violence from the Palestinians, the divisions, among the Palestinians, the inability of the Palestinians to respond, effectively to the occupation? I mean, from the Palestinian side, what did we do right and what did we do wrong, do you think?
First of all, under the rule of Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian people was quite united. It was very clear that Yasser Arafat is the founder father and is speaking on behalf of the majority of Palestinians. He was a figure that was recognized by most of the world, and you can't blame them for being divided when Israel did anything possible to divide them. First of all, physically. The division between Gaza and the West Bank is made by Israel, not by the Palestinians. Right. Encouraging Hamas in Gaza is made by Israel, not by the Palestinians.
Right.
Yes, they did mistakes. They should have reunite right now, yesterday, tomorrow. They don't do it. But by the end of the day, you can't put a symmetry between the occupier and the one who is occupied, between the strong one and the weak one. It's very clear that the key is in Israel's hands.
Is that what's missing, do you think, a charismatic, strong Palestinian leader like Yasser Arafat? Because you're right, when Arafat was there, even the extremists had a tough time among the Palestinians to stand up to him. They were very small. But it seemed, toward the end that his strength, was depleted. After they killed Rabin, and they pulled the rug out from peace, his strength was dissipating. Do you think if we were to have a Palestinian leader like Arafat, that it could change things, or does it even require something more in today's world?
No, I don't think it is enough. First of all, Israel is doing anything possible to crush any potential leader.
Yeah.
In the Israeli jail, we have Marwan Barghouti, who could easily become a successor to Arafat. Israel will never release him because he has this potential of becoming a popular leader and the one who can go for a settlement. So I wouldn't put everything on the fact that there is no charismatic leader. In South Africa, we had Nelson Mandela, who was extremely charismatic, but we had also de Klerk, who was quite a gray politician. Nobody expected him to go so far. And finally, de Klerk did the peace, or did the justice.
We're on the line with Gideon Levy, who is a columnist at Haaretz. Gideon, we have to take a break on the radio show for a couple minutes, but when we come back, let's talk a little bit about that. Does violence encourage peace, or does it encourage more anger? Is the two-state solution alive or dead? Maybe Palestinians should push for one state. Let's talk about that, but we're going to take a break in a few minutes. So I'm Ray Hanania. You're listening to the Arab Street Radio here on WNZK AM 690 on your dial in the Detroit, Greater Michigan area. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
KASHAT's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. KASHAT's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. KASHAT's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. EMAD NAKKASH is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. EMAD NAKKASH. See Dr. EMAD NAKKASH and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالأكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الأكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالأكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا أيا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف أن لكل مذاق أسرار، فنحن نقدم أجود أنواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 15 Mile Road, ستيرلينغ هايتس.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
And welcome back to the Arab Street Radio. I'm Ray Hanania here at Radio Baladi. Also, we go by 2 names here. Maybe that's our problem as Arabs. We embrace too many things, too many identities, and we can't bring it all together. I'm sitting in for Layla Al-Husseini on the U.S. Arab Radio Network. It's the only Arab, and I guess this is the problem for Arabs in America. We only have one radio show that broadcasts Monday through Friday. One radio show, Monday through Friday, in this whole country. 4.7 million Arabs, and we can't get our voices together. We're on the line with a great guest, Haaretz Columnist Gideon Levy. And Gideon and I have been talking about some of the problems that Palestinians face. And before the break, I had asked Gideon, a couple questions. What's the impact of violence on the future for Palestinians and Israelis? Is it a motivation to make peace, or is it a fuel to make things worse? No one likes violence, Gideon, but the fear of violence sometimes moves people to do the right thing, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything now.
There is not a very simple answer to this question. You see, the second Intifada was very violent, and it didn't reach anything. On the other hand, it's very clear to me that as long as Israel and Israelis will not be punished and will not pay a price for the occupation, Israel will not go for any change. There is no incentive to go for any change, because life in Israel is so good, and why would someone bother about any kind of change, of ending the occupation? Or who needs all this headache? Yeah. So on one hand, it's very clear that if there will be no price tag, there will be no change. On the other hand, violence until now didn't make much difference. I must admit that the first Intifada, the first Intifada, which was more limited in its violence, did reach some goals, because after the first Intifada, we had Madrid, we had Oslo, we had some kind of awareness in Israel that the occupation cannot last forever. The second Intifada was a total failure. So I really don't know what to tell you. Personally, obviously, I'm against any kind of violence. On the other hand, the big violent agent is the occupation, is the occupier, is Israel. The main violence is committed by Israel, not by the Palestinians.
Yeah, but of course, as you know, I think the Israelis do a much better job of managing the news media. Doesn't mean the media is always pro-Israeli, but they do such a better job of presenting their voice, in response. Even when you look at some of the pro-Israel media outside of Haaretz and others, I think that there's a sense that the Western media is afraid to criticize Israel. They want to criticize them, but they kind of temper it. They softball it. They don't make the criticism too hard. And unless it's too hard, what Israel does, you don't get to assess, the real impact of the result of the violence on the people. But the other side, let me ask you, I agree with you. I'm totally against violence. I don't think violence works. And even limited, fear of violence, I don't think that no longer is a factor. What about the idea that you have this huge population of non-Jews living inside the circle of Jewish people in Israel and the West Bank, the occupation, and that this is going to create a one-state solution or an ugly reality of an apartheid, violent, forever, that this could go on forever like that? How about that fear? Do you think that fear might be a factor to change Israelis, or do they just not care?
No. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. I think that as long as Israelis have wonderful lives, and as long as they don't pay any price for the occupation, they will not go for any change.
So they're just going to sit like this?
Yes.
You think this is going to go on a long time where there's violence, anger, but we're just going to deal with it?
It might, because Israel is extremely strong now, and the world is extremely passive about the Palestinian question, including the Arab world, who is just paying a lip service, but nothing but this. So altogether, at least in the recent years, play to Israel's hands, and something must change. But as long as this something will not change, I think this can last for quite a long time. If nothing will change, if Israel will not pay the price that it should pay for the occupation, why wouldn't it last for another 50 years?
Yeah, and in America, there are people that are ashamed of the way violence targets minorities, African Americans, Hispanics. They have this, you can't not, turn your eyes away from that stuff. There are some people that do it, but there's still a large group, and I believe in Israel there are a large group of Israelis still, are there not, that believe in, we need to do the right thing, and that, like you, that speak out. How do Arabs and Palestinians help voices like you without making you look like a traitor or a bad person? How do we help you? What can we do? What do you think what would make it easier, do you think, to change the minds of other Israelis? Or is that not possible?
No, I don't believe in changing the minds of the Israelis without making them be accountable and pay a price for the occupation. I think that the struggle should be in the civil societies in the West. I think the key and the hope is there, because they can make Israelis pay for the occupation. But it must come through, unfortunately, it must come through a stick and not through the carrot.
Yeah.
All those years in which we believe that niceties might change Israel's public opinion, it's a big failure and it never worked. Now it's time to change strategy and to do exactly what the world had done vis-a-vis the South African apartheid. It was very effective there. It should be very effective here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there was a way to do that. But even under the fight against apartheid in South Africa, all of the Africans in South Africa were it seemed united. And as you know, the Palestinians are not united. For example, in the Israeli Arabs, I think the Israeli Arabs are about 20% of the population of Israel. And yet I don't see them exercising their power. Do you think, little things, like not by itself, but if that were to change, if the Israeli Arabs exercise their power more, if they turn to the rule of law to fight, against some of these civil rights abuses, don't you think that might change things? Or am I just, grasping for, solutions? Can the Arab Israelis make a difference by being more active as voters and being more engaged in standing up to Israel's government?
Yes, they can, but they will not, because they have a lot to lose. And in many ways, they become more and more Israelis. And they are much more preoccupied with their own destiny. They are fighting for their own rights. They are fighting for their own welfare. And unfortunately, they care very little about their brothers under occupation.
That's interesting, because I was thinking that too, but it's hard to say that. How do the Palestinian citizens of Israel not identify with the Palestinians in the West Bank? To me, that as a Palestinian, it's an oddity. It's unusual, and to hear that, it's really kind of shocking. Is it really that bad, this divide between Israeli Arabs and Arabs in the West Bank?
Unfortunately, yes. We are generalizing. Obviously, there are many Israeli Palestinians who care a lot, who struggle, who are ready to pay a price. But the mainstream of the Israeli citizens who are Palestinian, the mainstream cares much more about education for their children, about budgets for their municipalities, rather than about freedom for their brothers.
Do you think the Israelis would accept this situation of a small minority of non-Jews who, don't complain, who live, and again, we're generalizing, not everybody's like this, but the majority, they do seem more passive, more quiet. They don't vote. They don't complain. Do you think Israelis could live with that? I bet, huh? If they could get rid of the occupation. If they could get rid of the Palestinians in the occupation and push them out, the Israelis would be happy, the Israeli right.
Look, we are dealing now with short runs. In the short run, I think that we don't have any hope and nothing will change in the short run. But for the long run, history tells us that no colonization and no occupation lasts forever. The question is, when will it happen? And unfortunately, right now, we don't see any hope. It takes at least another generation of Palestinians and Israelis, at least another generation, and maybe many more generations, until things will change. Right now, there are no signs that things are going to become any better.
That's depressing, Gideon. That just makes me sad, and I know you're sad. I know you say that with despair also. That's a very sad conclusion to hear, because that just means terrible things are going to continue for Israelis and Palestinians in the near future.
Right.
We're on the line with Gideon Levy. He's the columnist with Haaretz newspaper, one of the leading newspapers in Israel and the Middle East. And I subscribe to Haaretz. It's the one newspaper, when I want to know what's happening in Israel, I do read Haaretz myself. I think it's so important to support Haaretz because I think Haaretz is under great pressure given this whole context that we've been talking about. We're going to take another break, Gideon, and if you don't mind, if you can stay on with us a little longer, maybe another 20 minutes or so, or is it...
Let's make it another 10 minutes because I have to.
All right, we're going to take one quick break. When we come back, we'll do a final segment with Gideon. I'm Ray Hanania here at the Arab Street Radio. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Eid al-Adha is just around the corner. This holiday season, you can help uplift the spirit of someone in need and participate in Life's Udhaya Qurbani program, which reaches out to over 20 countries around the world. Donate today by calling 1-800-827-3543 or by visiting www.lifeusa.org.
أيام زمان كان طعم الأكل غير. كان جدي يجيب لي لأكلة المحاشي والكبة المشوية. بتعرفي اشتقنا لأيام زمان والطعم الطيب.
بس اليوم مع زياد ومنتج بديل دهن الخروف الحقيقي بطعم اللية بيعطيكي نفس الطعم الغني والمميز، مجفف، معقم، سهل الاستعمال وحلال 100%. يمكن استعماله في جميع الأكلات الشرقية. ما عليكي إلا أنه تفتحي الظرف وتضيفي من طعم اللية واستمتعي باللقمة الشهية.
وصحتين وهنا.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
And we're back on the Arab Street Radio. I'm Ray Hanania, special correspondent for the Arab News newspaper. My website is hanania.com. You can go there and read all my columns. And you can also download the podcast of this radio show and podcasts that I do with other interviewers. We have a very special guest on with us this morning, Haaretz Columnist Gideon Levy. We only have him for a few minutes more. But Gideon, tell me a little bit about some of the columns that you've been writing about. You really touch people when you explain a story that no one else writes about, like the village of Isawiya that you were this past week at the foot of Mount Scopus. There seems to be this effort by the Israelis to kind of really beat up on that community. Why are they doing it, and is it tough for you to write that column about that story is taking place in that village and inside the area that was annexed by Israel?
It is tough for me to witness all the crimes, all the injustice, all the suffer of the Palestinians under the occupation. Writing it is the easy part. The hard part is to really witness it and to know that I can do very little about it. I'm doing it now for many years. I'm trying to, this ungrateful job of trying to tell the Israelis the story that they don't want to know. And Issawiyah is just one example. Most of the Israelis want to believe that Issawiyah is a village of terrorists who want only one thing, and this is to murder as many Israelis as possible. And most of the Israeli media is collaborating with this narrative, namely dehumanizing the Palestinians. And I'm trying to rehumanize them as much as I can, but it's very little that I can do.
How do you keep doing it? I mean, because I have never, as I've been a journalist, and columnist for 45 years, and politics is one thing, but what you live in, it must be very difficult. I couldn't imagine myself being in your shoes, how tough it would be. What is it like?
It is tough, but do I have a real choice? I'm not sure I have a choice. I mean, I would love to become a restaurant critic, but I'm not sure I have the skills. And once I realized that the occupation is the biggest story, there is hardly anyone to tell it, then you really don't have any other choice. I mean, many people tell me, write about other subjects, try to have a broader focus, but by the end of the day, this occupation should be covered and cannot be denied. And I cannot collaborate with this denial of the Israeli society. And therefore, what I do, hard or easy, is the only way I can go.
Gideon, I admire you so much, and I appreciate the time you've taken. We have so many callers on, but I wonder if we could let one caller say hello to you before we let you go, if that's okay. Jerry, I know you're on the line there. You're on with Gideon Levy. This guy, Gideon, is a phenomenal journalist who puts up with so much to tell great stories that so few others want to tell. Go ahead, Jerry. We only got a couple minutes max.
Thank you. Mr. Ray Hanania, good morning to you.
Thank you.
And
good morning.
Good morning to your distinguished guest, journalist, Mr. Levy. Salam and shalom to you, Mr. Levy. Jerry Habba from Detroit, Michigan. How are you today?
I'm fine, and how are you?
Insha, alhamdulillah, zain, shukran.
Ask him a question, Jerry, because we can't have coffee. We don't have enough time to drink coffee.
Mr. Levy. First of all, I admire you, like Ray say. I wish if you were running for office to be the new Prime Minister of Israel, because you will make peace in the Holy Land. My question to you, Mr. Levy, in the recent few months, there was a new freshman congresswoman from Palestinian sources, Ms. Rashida Tlaib, congresswoman. My question is, did Mr. Levy try to reach out to the new Palestinian?
To Rashida.
I think we lost him.
Yes, I think we lost. I think his question was, did you get a chance to speak with Rashida when she was when she was visiting there, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib?
No, I don't think she visited here already. I know they are planned to come. And I'll be more than happy and honored to meet her, but I never met her.
All right. Gideon, listen, where can people go? Obviously, they can go to Haaretz to read your columns, but do you have a website where you post things?
No, everything is in Haaretz.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to ask our readers to go to Haaretz newspaper to read the columns of Gideon Levy. Gideon, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us on radio live in Detroit. I really appreciate it, and I hope we get a chance to talk again.
Thank you, Ray. It was really my pleasure and my honor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We learned a lot from you. Thank you. That was Gideon Levy, ladies and gentlemen, our guest. And I'm sorry that somehow Jerry Haba got disconnected there. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we can open the lines at 248-557-3300 to talk some more about other issues. I'm Ray Hanania here at the Arab Street Radio, at hanania.com, at WNZK AM 690 Radio. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
أيام زمان كان طعم الأكل غير. كان جدي يجيب لي لأكلة المحاشي والكبة المشوية. بتعرفي اشتقنا لأيام زمان والطعم الطيب.
بس اليوم مع زياد ومنتج بديل دهن الخروف الحقيقي بطعم اللي بيعطيكي نفس الطعم الغني والمميز، مجفف، معقم، سهل الاستعمال وحلال 100%. يمكن استعماله في جميع الأكلات الشرقية. ما عليكي إلا أنه تفتحي الظرف وتضيفي من طعم اللي واستمتعي باللقمة الشهية.
وصحتين وهنا.
Eid al-Adha is just around the corner. This holiday season, you can help uplift the spirit of someone in need and participate in life's Udhaya Qurbani program, which reaches out to over 20 countries around the world. Donate today by calling 1-800-827-3543 or by visiting www.lifeusa.org.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالاكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الاكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالاكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا ايا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف ان لكل مذاق اسرار، فنحن نقدم اجود انواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 50 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
And welcome back to the Arab Street Radio. I'm Ray Hanania. We just had a great conversation with Gideon Levy. He's a columnist with Haaretz newspaper in Israel. A really good columnist. I read his stuff all the time. Bradley Burston was another columnist, and who still writes, I think, but not regularly. Who really these guys are people that have tremendous courage to speak the truth about what's happening. And then to not just speak it, but to write about it, put their name to it, and you have to give Haaretz a lot of credit to have the courage to run their columns, because without Haaretz, you wouldn't hear any of these stories, in the Jerusalem Post or, the Times of Israel. It's a blur. They hit such radical right, information that's published. It's just terrible. But Haaretz and their columnists, they bring the truth out. What's interesting was during the interview, it was interesting to hear Gideon talk about how the Arab-Israeli voters really they're significant, but not in the context of peace. That the majority, and again, we're not all of them, but the vast majority of Arabs in Israel don't seem to connect with the Arabs in the West Bank. And he touched on one aspect that I wanted to talk a little bit more about. with him, but we only had him for about 40 minutes. And that's the rise of the fact that the image is changing. It's no longer Arab. We don't talk about, first of all, we don't care about Palestinians. Now we don't care about Arab. All we care about is the religion, the Islamist movement, the Islam, Muslims. If it isn't Muslim, nobody seems to care about it anymore. And I think the reason for that is the majority of Muslims are non-Arab, at least in the United States, or where the mainstream English language media writes, their audience, the Muslims, the majority are non-Arab. So they don't really seem to care. And the other thing is, the Israelis don't pay a price anymore for the oppression. Too many Israelis close their eyes, and there is no price. Violence isn't a price. The moral weight of doing something wrong isn't a price. Too many Israelis, I think, close their eyes to morality and ethics. And I think Gideon, made that argument very correctly, that until Israelis open up their eyes and feel compassion, and stand up to their government, there isn't going to be change. And finally, there is no charismatic Palestinian leader. Barghouti, who is in prison, is, a potential leader, but he's in an Israeli prison, and the Israelis are never going to let him out because they know that maybe he could be that charismatic Palestinian who might take the place of Arafat. But I can't believe it's just one person. There should be more. But anyway, we'll go to our phones now, 248-557-3300. I think we have Jerry back on the line. Let's see if Jerry's still there.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Thank you.
Sorry about what happened.
Disconnected with Mr. Levy, but I hope, Mr. Ray, Mr. Levy, he heard my question when I said, did you, Mr. Levy, try to reach out? We have a new congresswoman from Palestine. She's American Palestine, Ms. Rashida Tlaib.
He said that if she does, he said she hasn't gotten there yet. I thought maybe she had gotten there. But with Ilhan Omar, I think, from Minnesota, they're supposedly traveling to the West Bank, and they've gotten permission to visit there. But he said he hasn't seen her yet. So if she does get there, he'd be honored to interview her, he said.
We'll be very interested, Mr. Ray, because as a new Congresswoman freshman, Rashida Tlaib, or Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, we like to see them building bridges between the USA and the Middle East, especially in the Holy Land. Because, Mr. Ray, diplomatic channels is the most important things nowadays. We cannot talk in the language of guns and violence. No, and I do believe, Ray, and I'll ask you this question. Do you think, Mr. Ray Hanania, the Palestinian leadership lost a lot of opportunities to talk one-on-one with the Israelis? Don't you think they lost a golden opportunity before?
Yeah, I agree with you. They should speak to the Israelis, and, the BDS should be focused. The BDS movement should be focused, not broad. It's too spread out. It's against everything Israel, and I think that BDS should only focus on very specific things to be more effective, like to target the settlements, to target policies. But, that's our problem. It's really the Palestinians. We are divided. The Arabs are divided. Okay? And now it's no longer Arab. It's Muslim. If you're not a Muslim, you're a nobody in this world. When it comes to the Middle East. The big conventions are the, American Muslims for Palestine. And they have a token voice of, non-Muslims that participate. And, it's very depressing and to see this whole thing collapse and move away from what it should be. We're Arab. We're Middle Eastern. We should stand together as one voice. But, unfortunately, We're divided by people that want to take power.
Mr. Ray Hanania, excuse me.
Selfish.
Excuse me for interrupt you. You just mentioned a nice big point. You said, Jerry, and I believe I heard that in your last show when you mentioned Miss Hanan Ashrawi from Palestinian. Hanan, she's very a treasure for Palestinian issues.
Oh yeah, she's phenomenal.
Very smart.
Hanan is phenomenal.
Oh, and I bet you, I'm sorry to say that, Ray, if Hanan was a Muslim background, she could be on the leadership.
Yes. Oh, she would be phenomenal. Authority. But that's exactly it. She's not Muslim, and because she's not Muslim, there's a new movement out there that suppresses the Christian and non-Muslim voices in the Arab community. It suppresses it. And when you talk about it, people get mad at you. But, I don't care. I think that all it's doing is dragging us down. The more religious we become, the more ineffective we become. And it's very sad.
Mr. Hanania, what do you think about, I know you mentioned al-Barghouthi, he's in a prison, Israeli prison, but there was Saeb Ariqat. He's been there for a while. Do you think Saeb Ariqat, if he take over the leadership, he could change?
No. I know Saeb Ariqat. I've interviewed him several times. I've met him. He's very arrogant. He doesn't think that, Palestinians in the diaspora have a voice. He told us, he said, don't tell us what to do. That's what he told us. We visited there. And he said, we don't have a right to tell him and others living in the West Bank what they need to do. So he doesn't understand how to build coalitions. He's not very good. There's another person, Sam Bahour, who I wrote about this week in my Arab news column. Sam Bahour is a great guy. He's a businessman. But I was a little disappointed when he started throwing around the term, criticizing Palestinians as Uncle Toms. The Palestinians who went to Bahrain. I thought the Palestinians should have gone to Bahrain. And we should have had a debate and discussion about that. Instead of having a debate and discussion, the Palestinian leadership was writing them off as Uncle Toms.
Exactly, Mr. Ray Hanania. This is what we're missing. The Palestinian, I'm sorry to interrupt you, they lose a lot of golden opportunity. The Palestinian leadership should come to Bahrain, working shop, whatever they call it, and Jared Kushner, they should be there, face on face, try to put the card on the table, but they lost that opportunity.
Yeah, it did. Jerry, listen, thank you for calling, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Ray Hanania. Mr. Ray, let me take advantage of being in your show. I want to wish all the brother Muslim all over the world Eid al-Adha al-Mubarak, Eid Saeed.
Thank you. Then that goes for me too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Eid al-Adha al-Mubarak to all our Muslim friends, who are out there. The Muslims are important. And so are the Christians and all the Arabs. We need to come together as Arabs, though, not on the basis of religion. And listen, it was really hard. The technology, I want to thank Mike, our producer, and our system. It's really tough to bring, the technology to make it work sometimes, but it worked out perfect this time. We actually had Gideon Levy from Haaretz in Israel on the radio show talking with us. So it was really good to hear his voice. He's such a great writer. And I encourage you to go to Haaretz. You should subscribe. You need to, if you're going to subscribe to any paper in the Middle East, I think any Israeli paper, the only one I would recommend, Israeli paper, is Haaretz. Haaretz I have a lot of respect for. There's some good writers that I know with the other publications, but the other publications are mouthpieces for the Israeli right-wing governments, and even many of the mainstream American news media are mouthpieces for the Israeli right-wing government. But I'm still hopeful that there may be a change in the election in September. The Arabs, there's stories that the Arabs are being courted by some of the Israeli parties. But it was very depressing to hear Gideon say that, they're very distant, they're disconnected and maybe that's what Palestinian activists need to do, reconnect with the Israeli Arabs. Maybe that's a goal and objective that we have to set, to strengthen the bond with the Israeli Arabs and work with the Israeli Arabs for a new coalition. Because I think Gideon's right that this atmosphere of denial on the part of Israel and violence by Israel's government, it's not going to change. It's going to be like that for a while. So maybe the goal that we need to work toward is to bring the Palestinians in the West Bank closer to the Palestinians who are citizens in Israel, and to also to change the diaspora of Palestinians, to refocus them on moderation and a price that leads to peace, not a price that leads to vengeance and satisfaction of anger. People don't do things, unfortunately they don't do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Too many people do the right thing because they get a benefit from doing the right thing. So for many Israelis on the right, to get them to do the right thing, there needs to be some type of price. And I think the disruption of Israeli society is probably that goal. The Israelis need to feel the occupation, and right now they don't feel it. They don't even read about it. Their newspapers are so biased. They've blocked out the stories of the occupation and what Israel's military is doing. In this one town that Gideon wrote about, Essaouira, at the foot of Mount Scopus, it was part of the area that was annexed by Israel around Jerusalem. A boy was shot and killed by heavily armed Israeli soldiers because he fired off some fireworks. He was throwing some fireworks and they just shot him. They didn't even care. He's a little kid. The fact that he was a little kid, I think, even the worst in the American police department, the very small, bad group, even the worst among them wouldn't just shoot a little boy for no reason, but the Israeli soldiers would. Anyway, listen, thank you for joining me this week. I appreciate it. I want to thank Gideon Levy from Haaretz for joining us. I'm Ray Hanania. The website is hanania.com. You can follow up and get the podcast on iTunes or Spotify or any of the other podcasting sites, or you can visit my podcast website at thearabstreet.org. I'm Ray Hanania. You guys have a great weekend. Adham Mubarak to the Muslim community. Also, we will talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.